Hi, everyone. Welcome to our live stream. Today, we're going to be answering questions from some of our followers on Twitter about our recent psych study on student athlete stereotypes. I'm Shaye Fitzpatrick, one of the researchers.
I'm Andrew Zhang. I'm also a researcher.
I'm Sarah Luria, and I'm also another researcher.
So, our first question is from LeBron James. He says, "Hey guys, at Psych 104, I'm interested in the work you're doing, but would love to know more background information." Can definitely give you some of that. So our research question for the study was, does having a student athlete status have an effect on whether Duke students will be more or less motivated to help the student athlete? And as a group, we hypothesized that people are less likely to help student athletes than they are to help regular students. Our second tweet comes in from Chrissy Teigen, and she asks, at Psych 104, how did you go about performing this study? Sarah will answer this one.
Yeah, so our group is conducting the research using the experimental method in order to identify causality. So in this experiment, participants will be recruited using 3 methods. Flyers will be circulated around the Duke campus, an announcement will be made using Duke lists, and a post will be made on Duke Sona. So this study, we expect the participants to be solely freshmen in college. And the experiment will have a sample size of n equals 100. So to ensure internal validity, the experiments will be conducted under the disguise of false learning studies where participants will be unaware that they're in an experiment. So this will be a cover story to ensure the participants will not understand the purpose of the study. For consistency, participants will complete the study in the same room. They'll be seated in the same chair, and I'll have the same scripted encounter with the receptionist. Upon entering the waiting room, participants will fill out a form of consent and will be asked to take a seat. To control for extraneous factors, experiments will be conducted in the same location, have the same undercover researcher, and will follow the same script. Random assignment will be adopted in order to ensure that the participants in the 2 groups are unlikely to differ in any systemic way. So we're going to have 2 conditions. In the first condition, a Confederate will be posing as a regular student in a normal transport backpack and will walk past the participant and proceed to drop a binder, a few books, and a pencil. So that's the backpack on the left on the slide. And in the second condition, the Confederate will be wearing all Duke issued athletic merch and the athlete backpack, which is shown on the right of the slide. To measure helping behavior, this experiment will have 2 dependent variables. Firstly, we will measure if they verbally offer to help the Confederate, and secondly, physically, if they get out of their chair. Secondly, we will measure the time it takes the participant to help the Confederate after he drops the book. In this experiment, the operationally defined independent variable will be whether the Confederate's backpack will be normal or athletic. The first operationally defined variable will be whether they help, and the second operationally defined dependent variable will be how long it takes the participant to help. So the receptionist will have a stopwatch and record the time it takes the participant to help the Confederate and check if they do or do not help. The participant will be able to schedule appointments for the study between the hours of 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays, and the experiment will be conducted for a couple of weeks until the desired sample size is reached, which is 100. At the conclusion of the study, participants will be debriefed on the purpose of the study and the results of the study.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm sure that answered Chrissy's question very well. Next, we have a little video that's just kind of explains our experiment.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Shaye, and I'm not a student athlete.
Hi, I'm Andrew, and I'm a student athlete.
So our next question is from Chance the Rapper, and he says, well, what did you guys find at Psych 104? Andrew can answer this one.
Yeah, so for our results, we see that out of 100 participants, 22 of them helped the Confederate with an athlete backpack, whereas the rest of the 78 participants did not help the Confederate with that athlete backpack. It was a whole different story when the Confederate wore a normal backpack, because 55 of the 100 participants decided to help the Confederate with a normal backpack pick up his things, while only 45 of the people did not help the Confederate with a normal backpack. So not only did more people help when the Confederate was wearing a normal backpack, but everything about the participants' attitudes towards the Confederate improved, such as the average time it took participants to help the Confederate, how quickly the participants helped, and how long it took the participants to help decreased in time as well. For example, when the Confederate wore the athlete backpack, the mean time it took the participants to help was 20.14 seconds. The fastest time it took for someone to help the student athlete was 3 seconds. And the longest time it took someone to help the student athlete was 65 seconds. This changed drastically when the Confederate wore a normal backpack. The mean time improved to 10.9 seconds. The fastest time it took someone to help the student athlete or the normal student was 2 seconds, and the longest time it took was 35 seconds. It is because of these results that we can confidently say that people were less likely to help student athletes than they were to help regular students because of the negative preconceived perceptions of the student athletes. Since the students have such negative viewpoints on the student athletes, it causes them to mistreat them, which is why people are less likely to help the student athletes in a time of need. And yeah, pretty much for our conclusions, we can tell like from the results that we found that our hypothesis was correct, that people will be less likely to help student athletes when they're in need because of the negative stereotypes surrounded around the student athletes on college campuses. And this was kind of confirmed when we saw that people were less likely to help the Confederates that wore Duke Athletic issued backpacks, and people were more likely to help the Confederates when they were wearing a normal backpack.
Okay, so for our connections to class, we decided on these two vocabulary words that really helped us in our study, and that is attitude accessibility, which refers to the strength of the association between an object and an evaluation of it, which is typically measured by the speed with which people can report how they feel about an object or issue. And this kind of refers to the timing that we used, how we timed how long it would take the non-student athlete to help the student athlete, etc. And then our second definition was in-group, which refers to the group you belong to and identify with when your group is interacting with another group. And this kind of goes along with the idea of regular students kind of stereotyping student athletes and separating them into two separate in-groups. And as for the studies that we learned about in the textbook, there was a study that was conducted on What Would You Do that took place in Newark that had a well-dressed woman collapse on the ground, and then that woman was replaced with a homeless man, and the experiment was ran again. The results were that lots of people checked up on the woman who was dressed nicely and made sure she was okay, but no one checked up on the homeless man, and this is because they believe that the woman is one of them and part of their in-group, and the homeless man is in the out-group, so they did not care to check up on him when he collapsed. We also looked at the study performed by Solomon Ash for help with formatting our overall methods and experiment. In Ash's study, participants were shown a big line on the left and told to match it to line 1, 2, or 3. And similar to Ash's experiment, we set up a situation in terms that both of our studies were in the form of experimental design. So we have a final tweet, and it's from Tom Brady, and he says, "So awesome at Psych 104. The researchers of the study deserve all 7 of my Super Bowl rings." Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.